This is the Crescendo Music Education Podcast, episode number 92. This podcast is being recorded on the lands of the Turrbal people. I acknowledge them as the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. They were the first music makers on this land. In today's episode, I get to talk to Sandra Milliken. You know, I'm so lucky doing this podcast. I get to talk to amazing people. So you can hear how amazing she is in this episode. Listen to her bio and some of the things that she has done. Very interesting, and it's so lovely to support women composers as well. We're going to hear about gratitude, and she's going to talk to us about her Churchill Fellowship. Very interesting. And conducting and rehearsing choirs, some advice. This is gold. Listen to this episode. And welcome to the Crescendo Music Education Podcast to Sandra Milliken. Hello, Sandra.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm pretty fabulous, and you're looking
right.
pretty fabulous. Here we are, the pink,
yes,
red hair sisters. Yeah,
yes.
there you go. Look, I'm going to start this podcast by reading your brief bio. I will do my best. Just correct me if I say anything wrong, okay? All right, here we go. Sandra Milliken is an internationally recognised composer, conductor, clinician, teacher and adjudicator. A music graduate of the University of New England, Sandra also has a master's degree in choral conducting from the University of Queensland. Sandra has had a long involvement with choral music. She currently directs the Bayside Divas, a women's choir based in Sandgate, and Cannon Hill Anglican College Senior Choir. From 1995 to 2008, Sandra worked with the Queensland Youth Choir, conducting several of their ensembles and acting as their artistic director. In 2007, she moved to the Blackstone Ipswich Cambrian Choir, where she remained until 2016, when she went on to direct the Sunshine Coast Oriana Choir. During 2001, Sandra travelled overseas on a Churchill Fellowship. Now, that's a big thing. We're going to have a chat about that, Sandra. Yeah. Studying choral conducting and vocal choral areas, pedagogy. She visited 56 choirs in England, Sweden, Finland, the United States and Canada, working with and observing many international choral experts. 56 choirs?
I know. It was an epic trip.
Wow. How long were you away for?
3 months. It was fantastic.
Oh my goodness. Everyone who's listening now is going, she travelled for 3 months and went around and saw all these choirs in all these places. Yeah, I know. Everyone's going, I want to be her. I want to be her. My goodness. Okay. All right. I just think that's a dream. Okay. Back to the bio. Sandra has achieved international recognition as an Australian composer specialising in choral music. Her works have been performed and recorded by choirs across the world. She has her own choral music series, Choral Vivace, published by Edition Peters London, and has works published in Finland with Sulasol and in Sweden with Gammons. Gammons. I mispronounced that. Gammons. Sandra is also a prolific arranger with many folk, contemporary and popular arrangements available with Sheet Music Plus in the United States and online. Sandra has an avid interest in and commitment to promoting Australian choral music, yes, yeehaw, through her workshops and international invitations. As an adjudicator and music educator, Sandra has travelled extensively within Australia and internationally to Singapore, China, Canada, the United States, England, Belgium, Italy and Finland. As a conductor, she has produced a number of highly acclaimed choral recordings, including the premier Australian recording of the Ramirez Misa Criolla and Navidad Nuestra, a collection of new Australian music. Apologies to composers for my mispronunciation. and a collection of new Australian music titled New Leaves, a Cambrian collection, an eclectic collection of repertoire from around the world, and Haydn's Sunrise, featuring selected works by Michael Haydn and the Sunrise Mass by Ola Yi Lo. Oh, good heavens. Again,
Well done.
apologies, but we've got there. Oh, my goodness. That's huge. All right. But listening to that brief bio, Sandra, what would you add to this summary of your work?
Well, I guess as many musicians who are freelance, I wear many hats. and and what I do is I try to take the opportunities and learning experiences that present themselves whenever they are. And, it's really important for everybody to keep learning, attend symposiums and conferences, and really try to recharge your batteries because, musicians and music teachers work very hard, long hours. And in actual fact, when you're a teacher, you're always a teacher. And I'm always in my spare time thinking of new things, new ideas. So it's really great to go and recharge yourself when you have that opportunity to hear other people's experiences and what they have to offer. You can't possibly know everything. There is so much that you can learn. And it keeps you young, I think, if you keep learning. The other thing is, sometimes doors close and others open. Take those opportunities when you can. I've had some quite unexpected experiences in my life as well. For instance, I was asked to come to Thailand, to Bangkok, a few years back to judge the ASEAN anthem competition. Now, ASEAN, of course, is the group, an Asian collection of countries that have an anthem. And when I went there, it was like a mini Olympics. I was sitting at a desk and we all had our nation's flag in front of us. And it was like this huge boardroom with all these little flags in front. We each had a microphone and we listened to some compositions and we judged which one should be the anthem. And because I was Australian, I was actually one of three judges who wasn't actually in an Asian country. So we were the extras to Anyway, it was really interesting. And I've also been to San Francisco to mentor young composers in River of Words competition and those sorts of things. It's quite interesting. And I went to China and conducted a whole stack of students from American international schools throughout Asia who all came to China to do this massed choir. So the things I feel very blessed about that because, sometimes when you're busy, you don't have time to reflect on what you've done in the past. And I don't really like talking about myself, because what's done is done. And I'm looking for new ideas and to move ahead. And often people say, "Oh, you've done so many things." I think, well, I guess so. But I don't sit there and think about them all the time because, life goes on and I'm always looking for something fresh, new ideas. I listen to everybody. I have fantastic colleagues and I guess that takes me into, the fact that I was invited to start this Choral Vivace. And, I was at a symposium in Kyoto when the publisher came and approached me and said, "We've noticed what you've been talking to customers at another booth and helping people choose music from that weren't my own compositions." And they said, "We'd like. Is there something that you would like to do?" And I said, "I'd love to have my own series." And that's how Choral Vivace started. I know.
See, that's reward for you being just a nice, generous person.
Yeah, they saw me talking to other clients from other booths, and they said, "Oh, would you have anything to recommend from here?" I said, "Oh, sure." Well, as you do.
It's so good.
But
But this is good because I'm glad that you're on the podcast because it's giving you a chance and an excuse and, a reason to sit and reflect and share with others on your experiences because
that is true, yes.
they are amazing. My good, and I did not know most of these things about you, and we live in the same city. And in
I
fact,
know.
I met you, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, because we may have crossed paths, but it was really the Divas, wasn't it, that connected us?
Yes, on a more personal level, but I'd
Yes,
been to some of the Kodai when they used to have the summer schools over at Clayfield, and you were
yes,
there.
yes.
So that's, I've been to a couple of those, so I'd met you then. But yes, I got you in to do a workshop with the Divas. Yeah, which was great fun. You came back a couple of times. Yeah.
I did, and it was so fun. I love those ladies.
Oh, they found fantastic. Yes.
They
Great crew.
really are lovely. So hello, Divas, if you're listening. And if you're not, you should. Divas. Oh, goodness. Okay. Can we talk about gratitude? Because I like to have all of my guests to talk about gratitude. So professionally, personally, and people, all of that stuff.
Well, I think the gratitude, first of all, probably starts with going through studying in the Masters of Music course at UQ, and my lecturer, Dr. Ed Bolkovac, was just introduced me to so many different aspects of conducting, learning music, being a musician, musicianship. He also introduced me to IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. So that has really resonated with me, and that's something I will never forget, and I use in my singing teaching, and I use it in my choral conducting. I teach my choirs IPA, as in the basic vowels and what it looks like with the IPA symbol. And that's all you need. And it just helps you become more aware, because that's of vowel shapes, and that's how you get a better sound from your choir. So I have lots to thank Ed for in regards to that. And then I've met so many other colleagues around the world, like Roy Wales, who used to be here, Dr. Roy Wales, with that Conservatorium of Music. I've met him several times back in England. He's helped organise choir tours for my choirs. And been really supportive in the repertoire choice. He always says, "Oh, hey, Sandra, have you tried this piece?" So it's really great when you have colleagues like that. And I have a lot of colleagues in Finland as well, where some of my music is published, like Mariukka Rihimäki, and she runs a women's choir, and she is really always thinks outside the box. She's a fantastically talented woman. And it just makes me feel so awesome to have her as a friend,
Mhm.
and I've had lots of colleagues who've supported me over the years. They in ways of encouraging me, to achieve even more. Have you thought of? And as I'm composing, I think of some of these colleagues, because that helps me keep on a grassroots level, to write things that are useful in the community. And I have to thank my husband, of course, because he has supported me with, I have a website. He does all my proofreading for me. Checks all the syllabalization of words that go into the music that's composed. He does rehearsal tracks out of Sibelius. Where it's Team Milliken here.
Oh,
So,
lovely.
he's been really great for all that. So, and then, of course, finally, the Churchill Fellowship. And I was encouraged to go to that by one of my fellow students at UQ when I was doing my master's. And she said, "Sandra, you should go and try out for that." I said, "What for? I don't think I'd be good enough." And I thought, oh, well, I might as well give it a go, because I heard the Tapiola Children's Choir sing in Sydney when I went to the International Federation of Choral Music 1996 symposium. And I was just blown away by how young children could sing so beautifully with such a blend. It was amazing. And they played instruments as well, of course. So I thought I'd love to go and see this choir and see what their program's all about. But of course, I had a women's choir. I was involved in the um, Bayside Divas a bit later, and I thought, oh well, I'd like to go and do that in regards to women's choir and choral vocal pedagogy. So I made a list of choirs to go and visit. And then that list eventually tripled in size when I arrived on the land, because I met conductors and they said, or I met conductors who sang in other conductors' choirs. Oh, would you like to come and visit my choir? Well, I took every opportunity. I even went to opera chorus rehearsals, and I was not looking at opera,
Mm.
but I had all those experiences. So, Finnish operas. So I just took every opportunity I could to learn, and it was a fantastic learning experience. And I guess that all sort of all started to I had creative juices flowing by then, because it introduced me to new music, um, new styles of music, new languages. And that's where I could put that IPA into into practice, because silly me, I bought some Finnish music and sent it back, because I bought about 15 kilos of it. And when I got home, I went, oh, how am I going to teach this to my choir? I don't know anything about Finland, about Finnish. So I had to go and get Finnish lessons at UQ
Oh, no.
at the Modern Languages unit. It was hilarious. And look, I can't believe the things that eventuated from that, because the lady who was my Finnish teacher was from Finland, and she used to be a photographer with the Helsingin Sanomat, which is the newspaper in Helsinki.
Mm.
And she wrote poems, about Australia in Finnish. So,
Oh.
and it's funny, because I sang her, after she taught me a little bit about the pronunciation, etc. I sang her a folk tune, and she burst into tears, because it just reminded her of her homeland. Anyway, so we became quite firm friends, and I eventually composed some of her poems in Finnish. So they got published in Finland. It's just, when you look back at those things, it's just some amazing things that came out of that Churchill Fellowship. I made so many new friends, and it made me realize how insular we are in Australia. On the other hand, people in other countries, they want to know about Australian music. So I've been back and given lectures on Australian music and choral music. So it's been a great sort of roller coaster ride. And I know it was like 22 years ago, but it feels like it was yesterday, because I know so many things have happened since then in regard to that. So yeah, and I think part of the outcomes of the Churchill Fellowship is that when you come back, there's an expectation that you disseminate the knowledge within the Australian community. And I believe that my adjudication is a way of doing that, which is why I go out and adjudicate in some of the regional areas.
Mm.
And also I do some workshops. So in that way, I can disseminate some of the knowledge and the pedagogy that I've learned. And you know what? What's the point of going to the grave with everything you've learned? Keeping it to yourself. I think it's really important that you inspire others to find their passion, teach them so that they can carry on and keep growing. So that's, I guess, I'm really, really thankful for that experience. That was the best thing. Life began at 40 for me.
Oh, how amazing. Okay, I've got a couple of questions come out of that. All right. Well, first a comment, Ed. When I did my master's degree with Ed, and I'm still a little in touch. In fact, I must contact him, say hello, and hello, Ed, if you're listening. I call him one of my mentors, but he was also one of my tormentors. Because his standards are so high and his musicianship is so extraordinary. But it was inspirational. And I still recall to this day in that class, and I was in the first group that went through the master's degree when it started at UQ. And I remember we had to do sight singing for assessment, and they popped this Bertolotti in alto clef in front of me. Okay, and like, bear in mind, I am really struggling for air in this musicianship situation, right? But I'm sort of coping, sort of. Okay, so I'm thinking I can do this, and then he said, "Oh, and you can't use solfa, sight read it in letter names."
Oh,
And I went, like alto clef, like, zero experience. In solfa, I might have coped. Yes, I'll work out where the do is or the la or whatever the tonal center. I will have a go, look at the key signature. I can have a go in solfa, but in letter names. So I still, he knows how to push, how to extend your musicianship.
I had the same experience, but he knew I was capable of more. And that's the thing. So he
Yes.
knew you were capable of more.
Yeah, well,
And you did
I'm
it.
not sure about that, but he certainly thought he'd try it out.
Yes. Well,
So
I was definitely extended in that class. It was, and I think that made me realize what I can do.
yes, and what you can do if you actually just apply
Work.
yourself, even if you've got to work
Yes.
at it a bit, it's about being put outside your comfort zone and growing. So going in as Michael.
Play
Yeah.
and sings. Play and sings.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
I
Play
have to
this
practice
part.
those.
Yeah, they're hard. They're hard. I didn't find them as hard because I'd done a lot of Kodai training, and one part in one hand, one part in the other hand, sing the third part, ostinato in your foot, you know.
Oh, yes.
Oh
Oh,
no, I might be exaggerating, but yes, that's and I think that's one of the things that musicianship that we do within that Kodai pedagogy. It really is great for being able to extend from where you are. So I
yes,
just wanted to
definitely.
mention Ed and say hi to Ed if he's listening. Hi, Ed. And the other thing I was going to ask, when you were touring and watching all these amazing choirs and meeting these people, and because I can so understand, it's that connection that inspires. And so were you, in your own time, of which there probably wasn't a lot, were you madly composing, scribbling ideas, or was it all just getting stored on the back burner?
I was not composing during that time. It was all getting stored in the back burner.
Mm,
Uh, yes, to a
okay.
a point in time where it all just came out.
Oh, wow,
So,
that's
yeah,
fabulous.
yeah.
Oh,
I was, on the other hand, writing down all the warm-ups they did with all the choirs.
uh-huh.
I have screeds of notes from that, handwritten, because that was in the days before a laptop.
Well, that's a valuable thing.
Yes, definitely.
Wow, the Bible of warm-ups from Sandra
I think
Milliken.
I think I should publish that. And I
I
mean,
think you should.
as with warm-ups, you pick up things from different people. It's
Mm-hmm.
and some of the warm-ups were in relation to that. There's a relationship or a connection with the language,
Oh,
because some of them have different vowels
mm,
shapes to what we have, but we're all after the same thing, a good blend.
yeah,
Right.
interesting. Oh, I have
Mm.
to find out more about these warm-ups. But which will lead us, actually, if we can talk before we finish this episode, I want to get into conducting and rehearsing choirs and any
Aha.
sort of advice you would give. And I guess too, do you find if you were giving advice to another choral conductor, would it be different advice if they're teaching, like conducting a grade 1, 2 choir, or if they're conducting the Bayside Divas? What sort of advice do you have for people across the board?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are some basic
Mm.
things, and I think the first thing is choose your repertoire well. Choose repertoire that are going to be musical gems. Now, that's actually something that Jason Barry Smith speaks about.
Oh,
Opera singer. I've
yep.
had him come and work with the Bayside Divas, and he said it's really important to choose repertoire gem that are musical gems. There is so much music out there. Some of it's not worth singing. We only have a short life. We can't sing everything. So make sure you choose something that everybody's going to just love it, or there's some reason that they will eventually love it. Because sometimes we don't like things first off, do we? And it's important to choose it that it suits the choir's experience level, and that's on an age and a personal connection to the music. And of course, their vocal technique, whereas, at that point, try not to do pop songs for year one and one, lower level at primary school, because you're asking them to belt out in their chest voice, and that's actually not their real voice. That, when we're using that, the head voice, that chest voice only takes you so far. So you can't sing, lots of songs that have got an extended range. So yeah. And the other thing is, know your music. Make sure that you know the inside and out of that music, the right rhythms, because you know what, if somebody asks you a question in an older choir and you don't know the answer to it, that's a little bit tricky. It's like, well, you're not prepared. So you need to know your music really well. And the other thing is, plan your rehearsal. Now, even if it's a grade 1 rehearsal, have a couple of notes down. What focus activity you're going to do with them? What happens if they get restless throughout? What are you going to do with them? We have some things like posture police, and everybody's quiet. Because it's really important to keep the momentum of your rehearsal. Don't play, I say, don't rehearse one piece for half an hour. That is deadly boring.
Mm-hmm.
Do bits of it. Work on the architecture of it. So if it has an ABA, just learn the A section one week, learn the B section next week, join those together, and just learn the ending or something. You work around those sorts of things and make it interesting to learn. And always have a goal or achievement, in mind for each rehearsal. Now, things go wrong in rehearsals. Be flexible. So if your little plan doesn't work out, that is okay. But it's just, music teachers are so busy at school. And a lot of them are conducting a few choirs. So if you have those little plans written down and you just tick or cross if it worked out, at least when you go for next week's rehearsal, you can go, okay, that didn't work, but I can go on and do something like that. So yeah, be flexible. And I guess, you've mentioned the Bayside Divas. Well, they're 20 years old this year. We're celebrating 20 years. And I've been conducting for 18 years. I think I'm getting a bit old in the tooth or something, long in the tooth, but 18 years is a long time to be conducting a choir. And remember that the choir doesn't change as much as a school choir changes. And, and looking forward to trying new ideas, coming up with new threads for concerts. I do a lot of research for our concerts to connect all our repertoire. Like last year, we did a concert about connection. It was called Connections. And I researched all the repertoire that would have emotional connections to people in the choir or women, or and what the current situation is, politically, socially. So yeah, as a conductor, if you're conducting a community choir, you need to do a fair bit of background work in that idea. And my divas, that their age range from early 20s to 80s.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge age range. And we memorize everything.
Oh, wow.
So we do a 1.5 hour concert all by memory. And, that's really great, because when you're singing as a group, if you forget a word, somebody beside you will probably sing the word. So nobody will know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's no big deal. But, learning by memory, kids do it so easily. So,
Yes.
like, I guess that takes me to my chat choirs, Cannon Hill Anglican College. I have a college choir there, non-auditioned, and we sing a wide range of music. But something that came out of that choir, I had a group of boys who were really keen to sing. Oh my goodness, a group of boys that were really keen to sing.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, I said to them, hey, guys, would you like to do something together? Just, a boys group. And they call themselves the Chack Lads. So they come at 7 o'clock on a Friday morning to sing just for 15 minutes before the other choir starts, just to sing together. And Chack Lads has grown from, 5 or 6 to 12 now. So it's getting bigger. And the camaraderie amongst them, it just makes my heart burst with pride that these boys value singing so much and enjoy it. So yeah,
Oh, that's magic. That is really
It's just
magic.
magic.
Mm,
And you have those moments as a music teacher,
mm.
or a conductor or a musician. So yeah, I'm just so thrilled about some of the choir things that are happening in my life. So yes.
So much. I do find sometimes it can be a bit tricky sourcing good repertoire. What are your little tricks? Now you've got lots of connections. I imagine that the people connections would provide you, and the choral connections. You'd hear something sung by another choir and go, I love that. I will have that, because I love going to concerts in order to pick repertoire. Oh, like that one. I will do that one next. Is there any other little tips and tricks for choosing the repertoire, maybe, or where to look?
Where to look? I usually start off with Sheet Music Plus or JW Pepper. Uh, in relation to Australian repertoire, I will actually research the Australian composers' names myself. You can go to the Australian Music Centre, and some of the things that the Australian Music Centre has there are rather challenging. But you can go to the composer's website then, and they will have other things listed then. So it's really important to know how to research.
Mm.
And I've become I've become quite familiar with being able to do those things. And of course, on Sheet Music Plus, sometimes they have choirs singing the music, just a part of it, so that you can hear it. And it depends on what style of music you're after as well. So, and there are also some other like Kodai based groups that put up music. There are also some composers who put up free music for you to use, like Robert Burrell. He's put up a lot of canons. He's got some fantastic stuff. So, if you're friends with him on Facebook, you'll find some new pieces. He's very generous. So thank you, Robert.
Yes, he's also on my website on Crescendo. There is a book of his canons that's a free download on
Yeah,
Crescendo. So
amazing.
I'll put that link in the show notes so people can go in and just download that. And they're beautiful. And they're
Yeah,
so singable, and they're not, although they're canons, and you just think, oh, no, they can be turned into a performance,
yeah,
especially if, you've got a school choir and minimal time. Turn
yes,
a
that's right.
canon into a performance. Start with a
That's
little
right.
solo, sing it in unison, do it in canon, add
Add
an
an instrument.
ostinato. Yep,
Yep.
add an instrument.
Add
Suddenly
an instrument.
got
Yeah.
this fabulous, I love his time to swing, it's hard to beat that one. So yes, that's great. And Kath really also has quite a few freebies on her site.
Yes. Kim Kirkman has also produced a book of canons, or book. Most of them are canons, I'm pretty sure, or songs. So that's real. That's something else to search out. They're not free, but it's still some really great stuff in there. And it's trying to keep up with all the new things that are being published. And some are free, some aren't, but that's fine. So for teachers, you can buy a copy for your library then, at
Yes.
least if you know it exists. So yeah, it's kind of keeping your thumb on the pulse of a few things. And I think it is hard for music teachers, because when they get home, they probably just want to flake out.
Yes, that's right.
But
And
it
it's
is
tricky.
hard work,
No.
because you give so much of your personality,
Mhm.
and it's
And
very
it
draining.
is extra tricky when you are working in a school, because your classroom stuff has to take precedence, and it's lovely that you get to do this like full
Oh,
time.
it is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Look, on that note, we might leave this episode, and I would like you to come back and we'll have a chat about the composition process and some of your pieces, because I'd love you to tell our listeners about some of the works of yours that they can access, and how they can connect with you. We'll pop how to connect with you in the show notes of this
Great.
episode as well. But I would like you to come back, Sandra, if that's okay.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Debbie.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
As we know, laughter relieves stress. Don't lose sight of the funny side of life. Why does Peter Pan fly all the time? Because he never lands at Neverland. Thank you so much for watching our Crescendo Music Education podcast. For more information about all things crescendo, including membership and music education resources, visit us at crescendo.com.au. Don't forget to like and subscribe.